Okay, so you want to own a storage facility. A row of orange doors, no staff, no inventory, you pour the concrete and collect rent while you sleep. It's the most boring building in America and one of the most profitable. But the reason it works isn't the building. It's you. So here's the plan. We'll run the real math what it costs to get in, where the money actually comes from, the switch this business flips on you around month 14. The two ways owners lose everything, and what you'd really pocket at the end of the year. By the end, you'll know if the orange doors are the gold mine they're sold as, or if the one getting quietly farmed is the person holding the key. Start with the pitch, because it's a good one. Ask anyone who owns these and they'll tell you self-storage runs the highest margins in real estate. 65 to 75% of the rent falls straight through to profit. Higher than apartments, higher than offices. From a building with no plumbing and almost nobody working inside it. And they're everywhere. More than 50,000 of them in this country, over 2 billion square feet of climate-controlled emptiness that we, collectively, pay every month to fill. Roughly 1 in 9 households rents one right now. You've probably driven past 3 of them today without seeing one. But that switch I mentioned, the one around month 14, is where the real story lies. Hold on to it. First, the part everyone thinks they understand what it actually costs to get in. Let's open it up. There are 2 ways in. You build one or you buy one. Building looks simple until you price it. A single story, climate-controlled facility runs roughly $65 to $120 per square foot in hard construction costs, just the structure. Add land, site work, permits, and a lease-up period where the building sits half empty, and your all-in number climbs to somewhere between $130 and nearly $200 a foot. In plain money, a 60,000 square foot facility in a growing Sunday Belt town costs you somewhere around $8 to $12 million, all in before a single tenant swipes a gate code. And it doesn't pay you for a while. A brand new facility opens empty. You need to fill it lease up. The industry calls it, and getting to a healthy occupancy of 85 to 92% can take 2 to 3 years. For those years, you are feeding a construction loan with a building that's half air. So most people buy instead, and when you buy, you are not really buying a building, you are buying an income stream. The price is set by one number, the cap rate. Take the facility's yearly profit, divide it by the price, and that's your cap rate. A 5% cap means you are paying $20 for every dollar of annual profit. An 8% cap means $12.50. Here is where it gets interesting. The trophy facility's big, modern, in a booming city trade at cap rates around 5 to 6%. Expensive. Everybody wants them. But a smaller facility in a secondary market with a mom-and-pop owner who never raised the rents, that can trade at 8, 9, even 10%. Cheaper income, more risk. And hold that thought, that gap between the cheap ones and the expensive ones is exactly where fortunes get made and lost. We'll come back to it. Now, where does the money actually come from? The obvious answer is rent. The most common unit is a 10 by 10 100 square feet, about the size of a small bedroom. Roughly 1 in 4 renters picks one. It goes for somewhere around $100 to $180 a month, depending on the city and whether it's climate controlled. Call it $1 to $1.40 per square foot every month, which doesn't sound like much. But run the numbers on the whole building. A 40,000 square foot facility filled to 90% at $1 a foot brings in about $430,000 a year. Take out roughly a third for property taxes, insurance, and the one part-time person who answers the phone, and you keep around $280,000. That's your net operating income on a business that, on a good day, has 1 human being on site. That's the number they sell you. 65% margins. Nearly passive, recession-proof. And here is where I have to be honest with you, because the fact checkers in the comments will be. Recession-proof is the industry's favorite phrase, and it's true until it isn't. The demand is real. Something like 70% of it comes from what operators call the 4Ds death: divorce, dislocation, and downsizing. Life falls apart and stuff needs somewhere to go. That demand doesn't care about the stock market. But the building 3 miles away doesn't care about your feelings either, and we'll get to what happens when 10 of them open at once. Because the rent isn't the secret. This is the secret. Most people rent a unit for a reason, with an expiration date, a move, a renovation. Mom passed, and the house has to be cleared out by the end of the month. In their head, it's temporary, just a couple of months. That's the single most profitable sentence a customer can say. Because the average tenant does not stay a couple of months. The average tenant stays about 14 months. And the sticky ones, they stretch past 2 years. Roughly half of renters admit they're keeping things tied to a chapter of their life they've already moved on from. An ex, a parent. A version of themselves that doesn't exist anymore. Once your stuff is in the box, something in your brain flips. Canceling doesn't feel like saving $100 a month. It feels like throwing your life in a dumpster. So you don't. You keep paying, month after month, to not make a 20-minute decision. The operator isn't renting you space. They're renting you time. Time to avoid a choice you don't want to make. And they have built a business where you forgetting to cancel is the entire point. Which brings us back to that switch, the one that flips around month 14. Here is how it works. To get you in the door, the facility gives you a great rate. $84 a month, first month free, move-in special. You sign up. Your stuff goes in. You set up autopay so you never have to think about it again. And then quietly the rent starts to climb. The industry even has a name for it, an existing customer rate increase. In one documented case, a tenant's unit went from $169 to $173 to $285 a month, while a brand new customer walking in off the street to that exact same facility was quoted $84, same box. More than 3 times what the new guy pays. The only difference is that you already have your stuff inside, and they know you are not going to haul it across town over $40. That's the switch. You stop being a customer they have to win, and you become a customer they can squeeze. And because it's on auto pay, you might not even notice for months. Now do the math that nobody does out loud. The average American storage unit holds stuff they value at about $3,339. And that unit costs them, very often, over $2,000 a year. So somewhere around your second or third year, right about the time that rate increase has kicked in, you have quietly paid the facility more in rent than everything inside the unit is worth. You could have replaced all of it and then some. Instead, you are paying to guard it. And here is the trap door underneath even that. If you ever do stop paying, really stop, you don't just lose the unit. Storage operates under lien law. Miss enough payments, usually somewhere between 90 and 120 days, and the operator can cut your lock, roll up the door, and auction everything inside to a stranger. If that sounds familiar, it's because an entire TV genre was built on it. Storage Wars premiered in 2010. Its second season opener pulled over 5 million viewers. America turned watching strangers bid on defaulted grandmothers' belongings into primetime entertainment. That's not a side story. That's the business with the lights turned up. So if the customer is this reliable, how does anyone lose money owning one? 2 ways. And they're brutal. The first is overbuilding. Remember, recession-proof is what the whole industry believes, which is exactly the problem. When everyone believes a business can't lose, everyone builds one. During the pandemic boom, developers flooded high-growth Sunbelt cities Atlanta, Orlando, Dallas, Phoenix, Cape Coral with new facilities. And storage has a cruel geography. A customer will not drive across town to save $5. Your market is a 3-mile circle. Put 3 new facilities in that circle, and all of you are now fighting over the same divorces. The result in 2024, national street rates for storage actually fell down around 3.5% after nearly 27 straight months of declines. Think about that. The recession-proof business had its prices drop for over 2 years. If you are the person who just spent $11 million building the last facility in an overbuilt suburb, your building stalls at 70% occupancy, your rents come in under what you projected, and you are still making that construction loan payment every single month. The math that looked passive becomes a slow bleed. The second way is subtler, and it took down people who never touched a wrench. When money was cheap, private equity funds that had never run a storage facility in their lives poured in and bought them at cap rates around 4%, barely above their loan rates. They assumed the boom would run forever. Then interest rates spiked. Rents softened, and cap rates re-expanded towards 6-7%. Remember, the cap rate sets the price. When it climbs from 4 to 7, the value of that building falls by nearly half, even if the building is completely full. Operators warned that this whole class of 2021 and 2022 buyers would either lose their properties or never see a real return. A full building losing money because someone paid the wrong price at the top. In a business where value is just profit divided by a cap rate, overpaying isn't a mistake. It's a bomb with a delayed fuse. So, after all that, how much do you actually make? Buy right, and it's genuinely good. Take that 40,000-foot facility making $280,000 a year in profit. At a market cap rate, that building is worth somewhere between $3.5 and nearly $5 million. Own it outright, and you are pocketing most of that $280 a year nearly passively. Buy it with a loan, and your cash-on-cash return typically runs 6 to 8% a year in the pocket with total returns. Once the building appreciates and you push those rents, landing in the 10 to 15% range over time, not lottery money. But quiet, compounding, boring building money, the kind that doesn't ask you to show up. Here is a second way, and it's how a lot of storage fortunes actually start. You find the tired mom and pop facility in a small town, the one where the owner hasn't raised rents in years and still takes checks in a drawer. You buy it cheap at an 8% cap. Then you do the dull things they never did: push the rents to market, turn on auto pay. Put the empty units online so people can rent them at midnight. You didn't build anything. You just started running it like it's actually a business, and every extra dollar of profit you squeeze out, at an 8% cap, adds $12.50 to what the place is worth. That's the game. Buy neglected, run it properly, and the building re-rates underneath you. And at the very top, it gets absurd. In 1972, a man named B. Wayne Hughes put $50,000 into a simple bet that Americans own more than their homes can hold, and they will pay forever rather than let it go. That bet became Public Storage. Today, it's the largest storage company in the country, a public company doing $4.7 billion a year in revenue across roughly 380 facilities and 245 million square feet. When Hughes died in 2021, Forbes put his fortune at around $4 billion. He didn't invent a product. He didn't cure anything. He monetized a feeling, the inability to let go, and turned the most forgettable building in the strip mall into one of the highest margin businesses in America. So yes, you can own a storage facility. You can make very real money doing it, if you buy it right and you don't build the 10th one on the block. But understand what you'd actually be selling. It was never the space. It was never the orange door. You'd be selling people time to not decide. Time to not let go and collecting a check every month they choose to keep paying instead of choosing at all. You are not renting out a room. You are renting out an excuse. The only question that matters is which side of that door you want to be standing on.